دیوار بیزار.
دوستان عزیز و ارجمندم سلام. برنامه رو شروع کنیم.
رادیو صدای دوست، اینجا صدای شماست. صدای دوست .com.
Welcome everybody. My name is Dariush and you're listening to SedayDoost.com. Tonight's program is in English. This isn't just for Iranians, but it's also for our non-Iranian friends, those who don't speak Farsi. I wish I would say, or I could say, that I hope you had a good day. But I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't a good day. As the Iranian community that has supported its, as the Iranian communities around the U.S. continue our support for the Iranian people fighting for their lives, I'm doing multiple things at one time, so I apologize. The recent situations in Iran, with the recent news of the mass arrests and the number of executions that are set to take place, our situation has become dire. Men, women, and children are being arrested, charged, and sentenced to execution on unfathomable scale and speed. The situation and what is taking place in Iran is no longer an Iranian issue. This isn't just about Iranian people anymore. It has now evolved into a humanitarian crisis. Think about this. Think about this. And every single one of us, regardless of being Iranian or not, absolutely regardless of nationality or race, religion, or political point of view, we must step in and get involved and do everything in our power to force the Iranian regime to stop these arrests and executions of innocent women and children. We shouldn't do this as Iranians or as Americans. We should do this as human beings. We're talking about human beings here. We as Iranian Americans can no longer just attend demonstrations and share posts on social medias. We can no longer just be the voice of the people in Iran. We have reached a point, dear friends. We've reached a point that time is now against the Iranian people, especially those that have been arrested and are scheduled to be executed by this regime. Every second can make a difference between life and death. Every second. What if this was you? What if this was one of your loved ones, your children? What if you were one of those arrested, charged, sentenced to execution in unimaginable conditions? What if this was your child, your brother, your sister? Would you not reach out to everything and everyone you could think of begging for help? Would you just still attend demonstrations and shout chants? Would you? Would you waste a second to save your loved ones sitting and waiting to be executed? And before the execution, they are tortured, raped, and then executed. Publicly executed. What if it was them? Or would you move heaven and earth to do everything in your power to save your loved ones? People inside of Iran have no one to turn to for help or support. No one they can turn to and plead with to take action against and force the Iranian regime to stop murder of their children and loved ones. No access to the international community to beg for help. They have no one. They have no one. We as human beings, we as people with access to the international community, to the U.S. government, to senators, to Congress people, we must do what they cannot. We can no longer be their voice. We can no longer echo their chants. We must become that support and help that they don't have. We must ensure their cries of help and despair to the outside world is heard. We are the ones that must do whatever we can to help them in any way possible. We must do and be what we would pray and hope that someone who lived outside of Iran would do if our places were changed. If we were in their place, we would want somebody, anybody, do something. They are killing my children. They are killing my child, my brother, my sister. Do something. They can't do it themselves. They can't go and file for. There is no rule of law for them to go and file for pleads and see if they can. That's not how it is. They're arrested, they're charged, they're sentenced and executed in an incredibly amount of short time. You may think you can't do anything. You may think, well, I can't help. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You're wrong. You can help. You, me, we Together we can help them and do what they cannot. We can and must reach out to everyone we know and implore them to help and to get involved. Doesn't matter if they're American or European, Asian or Hispanic, black or white, yellow or brown, Republican or Democrat, independent or other. They just have to be human beings. Even animals will come to rescue of other animals when they must. We as humans, we should be able to do better. We as a whole can and must demand and force United Nations, UNICEF, to take swift actions to stop the Iranian regime from these massacres, unimaginable massacres of innocent people. And they must stop them from committing crimes against humanity. They must stop the Iranian regime from raping and torturing women and children before they execute them. We simply must. We have reached a point that we must demand international intervention for the U.S. government, for the European countries to step in and intervene and force this Iranian regime to stop killing its own people. They cannot just simply pass charters or resolutions. They must take action. People are dying. People are being murdered, raped, tortured. We must, as human beings, this is not an Iranian issue. I'll say this again. This is a humanitarian issue. We must reach out and demand those that are in office to step in and do their part, do everything they can to intervene. From the local political office all the way to the Oval Office. From the mayor to the governor. From state senators and congressmen and congresswomen to our representatives in U.S. Senate and Congress. Each one of us must start contacting them. Contact them. Call them. Email them. Tell them what you, as someone who voted for them, demand. That you demand they stand up for human rights, for humanity. They stand up and take action and demand from them to get involved, to simply put a stop to the arrest and executions and killing of innocent people. Demand that they expel Iranian diplomats and their families. Freeze their assets. Demand that they do not, let me say this again, demand that they do not give safe haven to the Iranian regime, its members, its representatives, its diplomats, and their families. Tell them if they don't step in and they don't do their part to prevent these massacres, blatant violations of human rights that are taking place, rape of women and children before they're executed, you will not vote for them. You will not support them. You can hold demonstrations in front of their offices, in city council chambers, in town hall meetings, anywhere that's public, and demand they do something. Something. What if this was their own children? What if this was their own grandchildren? What would they do? You remind them that if they don't stand up for human values, for human life, for human rights, if they do not stand up for protection of innocent, they don't stand up for democracy and freedom, they are standing with people like Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein, and others like them. Is that who we want in our office representing us in our local and state and federal government? If they're not willing to stand for what we stand for, why do we vote for them? Why should we vote for them? As Iranian Americans, reach out to your neighbors. Tell them what's going on. Ask them for help. Ask them to get involved. Ask them to contact their representatives and demand the same thing. Not just for Iranian people, but again, this is for humanity. This isn't an Iranian people thing. It is not. We cannot idly stand by. Our responses can't be just to cry when somebody else is executed. We can't just share posts in social media and curse them and damn them. We cannot just attend demonstrations and chants. If this was you, if this was your child and you could do nothing, what would you expect from others to do for you? What would you expect them to do for you when you can't do it for yourself? Most of us have children. Most of us have grandchildren. What would we do? What would we do if our children, if our places were changed? What would you want others to do? Not just Iranians, but international community as a whole. We can and must demand from our federal representatives to step in. If you don't step in, we will not vote for you. It's that simple. If you do not stand up for humanity, if you don't stand up for human rights, if you don't stand up what the Constitution of this country and this country in its core stands for, you shouldn't be in the office. You're a public servant. I am that public. We have to roll up our sleeves. We have to start doing what humanity demands of us. Start calling. Start emailing. Imagine if each state has 2 senators. Imagine if 10,000 of us called them, emailed them, go in front of their offices to demonstrate, what do you think they would do? What do you think they would do when they realized they have lost your vote? You stand up for humanity or you go home. You stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Are you in favor of or support Hitler? Do you? We must demand that the Iranian regime has no safe haven anywhere in this world, or their families. The same, we need to treat them exactly the same way the Nazis, the SS, were treated after the war. After the war. In your attend demonstrations. Demand that the demonstrations, the chants, the slogans are in English, not in Farsi. We have to accept the fact that there's a perception issue. And that perception is those that are not Iranians, when they hear and see Iranians, they are reminded of what they've seen on the news, where thousands of people write chants and chants, death to America, death to Israel, death to this, death to that. Down with USA, down with this, down with that. As the Iranian community here, we have that responsibility to remind, to educate Americans that that's not who we are. What you have seen, what you have witnessed in Iran with the demonstrations, people raising their hand, chanting death to this and death to that, that's not us. We have to educate everybody that the Iranian government and its actions has nothing to do with Iranian people. Iranians were the first to come up with a charter for human rights. We were the first to free slaves. We were the ones that we officially provided freedom of religion, even in the countries we conquered. That's who Iranians are. Not what you see on TV demonstrating for the Iranian regime and its government. Iranian people are peaceful, loving, caring, educated, sincere, kind human beings. Those in power in Iran are exactly the opposite. They are not Iranians. They only speak Iranian. Americans and other nationalities, non-Iranians. We have all seen these demonstrations. When I remember in 78, when the U.S. Embassy was taken. You guys remember that? I do. That's the image non-Iranians have of us, whether we want to accept that or not. That's simply just a fact. So when we go out and chant, when we go out to demonstrate the injustice that's taking place in Iran, we must do it in a way that shows the difference between us and them. That shows the difference between civility. I don't even know what to call that. I honestly don't know what to call them. They speak of God and kindness and peace, and this is what they show. They speak of making sure you go to heaven. They want to make sure you go to heaven. They're making sure that its people are sent directly to heaven. What you see, the Iranian regime, anyone who represents the Iranian government, any group that lobbies for them, any group that supports them, anyone that supports them, they are against humanity. They are against human rights. They are against democracy. They are against freedom. I don't care who it is. It doesn't even have to be Iranian to fall under that category. Iranians, Iranian Americans, Iranians in Europe, in Asia, in Middle East, in South America and Canada, all Iranians. We must have the same voice, same chance, same message, that those that are not Iranian understand why we are doing what we're doing. We have to contact our representatives. We have to demand to be heard in City Hall or County Commission offices every time they have a public forum. We have to be there. We have to be civilized. We have to show what real Iranians are. From our chants, to our signs, to how we speak and how we treat others. Just because we know the despair that people are in, it doesn't mean others do. And how do you get somebody to understand? How do you get someone to relate to you and the issues that you're dealing with? They have to get to know you first. They have to know what the problem is. They have to know what's going on. And how you represent yourself, it doesn't matter if you like this or not. It is what it is. When you deal with non-Iranians, you are representing Iranian American community. You are representing the Iranian people. It's that simple. We have no time. those that are sitting and waiting to be executed, those that are being raped and tortured. Every second counts. We cannot just do this on weekends alone, attending as many demonstrations or during the week as we can. We're past demonstrations and chats. We are past echoing their voice. We must be their tool. Be what use and be what they do not have or have access to. We can't sit idly by anymore. We're past that. محسن شکاری, مجید رضا رهبند, they were only 23 years old. Only 23. And they were executed, publicly executed, to scare people. They were 23 years old. And you know what they wanted from life? Do you know what their charges were? They wanted freedom. They wanted what you have. They wanted what you enjoy. To be free. One of the charges of the executed was because they blocked the street. Let me say this one more time, and let me say this as clear as possible. One of those that was recently executed, his charge, his crime, was because he blocked the road. He was executed for that. This is who Iranians have been dealing with for the last 45 years. And Iranian people are done. They are sick and tired of it. They don't want anybody to give them money. They don't want anyone to come and send armies and help them. The only thing they want is for international community not to support the Iranian regime and its people. That's all they want. That's all they want. They just want, don't support our enemies. We can take care of them. Just don't support them. Every single one of the leaders in this murderous regime, every single one of them, their families, their children, and their billions of dollars worth of assets that they have stolen from Iranian people, they're here. They're in Europe enjoying life and everything that their parents are killing their children and people for in Iran. It's okay for my child to, drink, go walk around naked, have orgies, use drugs, get on a yacht, get on a personal plane, and, go to the best schools, live in the best houses. Everything absolutely top of the line. Money is simply not an object. But there are 7 and 8-year-olds in Iran that the only food they can find is in a dumpster. It's in a trash can. It's what they can find on the street. And they speak of wanting nuclear power for energy and peace. Look what you're doing to your own people. Imagine what would happen if they have or gain access to nuclear weapons. Every single one of us, every single Iranian American, every single one of us, we must do everything in our power. Everything in our power to stop the executions, to stop the rape and torture of women and children. We simply must. We simply must. Find contact information of your state, city, state, and federal representatives. Contact them, call them, email them, hold demonstrations in front of their offices. Make them hear you. Attend city hall events. Hold signs. Do everything you can so everybody who has that power, who has that ability, who has that capability, they can do something. Force them, demand that they take action and put a stop to this. Every second counts. Every second counts. What if this was you? What if this was your child? Think about that. Till we meet again. زندگی آزادی.